Hello and welcome back to a video on Dave's E39 M5, and my god, it's been a while.
It has, it's been a long time, but...
Let's tell the story, Dave, because you've not driven this thing for over 10 months.
Not because I didn't want to.
But because you were worried about breaking something expensive. They can probably see just here, and we will go into it further, but just explain what caused your fear with these cars and the rear subframe.
Apparently, it's a common issue, even with stock power E39 M5s. If you drive it enthusiastically, this is a bit of a weak link on the entire rear end. It's the subframe, and the subframe structure itself is good, but the front diff mount, there is only one, whereas the E60s, they have one on each side. Even N54 cars do, don't they?
Even those low-power N54 cars have two mounts on the front of the diff, where this only has the one mount, and obviously that's a lot of load that's going to go through there when you're doing your clutch kicks.
Exactly, and yeah, it happens even with stock power cars. It just shears this single mount off the front, and it can cause a lot of damage. But even if it doesn't, even if you just destroy your subframe, today's day and age, especially in Australia, it would be near impossible to replace this subframe, which I didn't want to go through.
No, they are M5 specific subframes, so super rare. In fact, are there any of these for sale at the moment in Australia?
Actual M5s?
Yeah.
I think there's one.
One. So these things are getting really rare. Now, David, well, actually, I think I did mention in the other video, we started this on Saturday.
Oh my god.
Today is Thursday. Getting the subframe out ended up being an absolute nightmare because of handbrake cables and exhaust not wanting to come out. But she is out. You actually got it over to Adrian. He's a good mate of ours that has a welder yesterday, which was a public holiday. So yeah, it was good that he did that. And we have got some footage of the welding going on, which we'll overlay. But can you explain what's gone on with reinforcing this section? Because it looks really good now, but you've added a fair bit of metal to it, haven't you?
There is. It's a lot more substantial than what it was. And so Adrian's had a bit of fabrication, history, knows what he's doing. So I showed him what breaks the weak point. And you can actually buy a subframe front diff mount reinforcement kit from Dynon, believe it or not. But that kit is literally just a flat piece of alloy that you actually weld in on the back end. And I showed that to Adrian, and he's like, it's going to help, obviously, but there's got to be a better way. And then talking to Billy down in Victoria, who has to be one of the most enthusiastically driving E39 M5 owners in the world, he has snapped multiple subframes completely. He showed his way with a big steel rod actually supporting the entire mount from left to right. And Adrian looked at that and said, yeah, if you can do that, that's going to be the best way to do it. So basically that was the plan. I rushed it around there yesterday, which was, again, supposed to be on the weekend if all this didn't go to plan. And he started adding lots of material. It obviously started with this big hoop and got that around. So that basically hugs the entire mount and supports it to this big bracket. And then after that, also added these wings, which are actually, I don't know if the camera, might not show it in the camera, but they're pretty thick. They're actually pretty substantial. So that will stop, obviously, any lateral movement. And then this big hoop stops any up and down movement. And the whole thing is pretty bloody solid now.
I've got to say, I was pretty surprised with how flimsy the stock one is. And we will flash up what it looked like beforehand. But yeah, we're getting there. I guess now you've got to put all of your diff mounts in, the subframe bushes in, and you're going to give it a clean because this bit looks real nice now.
Believe it or not, I've actually cleaned. I cleaned it from the top, which obviously you don't see in the car, but it still needs more cleaning. It's 20 odd years old. It's got like dirt penetrated into the alloy, so I'm going to give it a good scrub everywhere. Hopefully, make it look nice and new.
And because this is the first one that we've had anything to do with, something that will be a top tip is fit your solid diff mount before you do this, because there was some. What's the word? There's
some famoosing.
Famoosing. I don't know.
No, look, honestly,
a hammer was involved.
There's probably a way to do it if you want to take your time, if you were paying a shop lots of money to do it. But I'd already messed Adrian around a little bit. Believe it or not, it's actually quite hot in summer in Australia, and in all the welding gear in his garage, it was a pretty big setup. And look, a lot of heat obviously going on because that's quite a thick piece of alloy to weld and to bend. So yeah, there was a lot of heat and a fair bit of force, and unfortunately the back end of the diff mount actually elongated a little bit, just on one side. The front's still perfectly symmetrical, but it's going to make pushing in the new solid diff mount, the unicorn egg as it's called, it's probably going to be too bad, to be fair. I mean, we'll have to attack that later, but top tip, if you are reinforcing your mount, just put the new diff mount in, the solid diff mount in, and then you can do what the hell you like, and nothing's going to change shape.
So the question is, will we be able to fit the new diff mount? You'll find out shortly after this time lapse of cleaning. All right, guys, we'll see you in a sec.
after that last segment you saw of me cleaning the subframe, I actually did bring it in and try and remove these rear diff bushes, but just couldn't get them out without a proper tool or a proper bush removal kit. So ended up borrowing one from Jake, which is this kit here. Comes with all the different size cups and different size threaded bar with actual ball bearings on the nuts. It does make a hell of a difference, but even with that, it was still really tight to get out. I got a bit carried away before the camera was here and pulled this one out and then pushed the new poly mount in. I wanted to see how it all went together, and yeah, just got to be excited really. But I will set the camera up now and do this one, and then I'll show you how how easy these PowerFlex poly bushes go in, and yeah, that is going to make a hell of a difference to the rear end of the car. And then we've still got to do the front diff bush as well, which is the solid Jed's unicorn egg as well. So I'll set the camera up. Let's get into it. All right, that cup fits inside the bush nice and tight, and that one I know already fits just over there. Perfect. So let's get you captive. Boom. Nice one. I realised you could swap the long bit of the rod around and use the rattle gun, but they're just so tight, and the thread on this rod wasn't perfect, so I don't just want to go ham with the rattle gun, and instead I will do it the old school way. So this might take a little while. I'll fast forward. And there it is. That's awesome. So it just pushes the bush out of there with this cup into the big cup. And that side actually came out much easier than this side, using the ratchet and the spanner, just going easy. It just, I don't know. Don't know if it was not as tight or something, but this one worked well. That was nice and easy. Cool. All right, now there's a bit of crud in there. I'll use a scourer. That's the best thing to clean it up. It's only soft alloy. Just clean that inner edge up, get rid of this rubber hanging off the edge, make sure there's no burrs or anything anywhere, and push the other one out. And the poly bushes are super easy to go in. Once you've given that a nice clean, yeah. And you know your bush is all nice and clean. They simply just push in from this side. Like that. Easy. Boom. And then there's a metal sleeve you've got to slide through over here, and that does need some grease put on there. So I'll lather that up. In fact, even squirt some inside, I think. Looking good. Bit of a smudge. Still a bit dry. Ugh, it's the worst. Need more lube. A bit more on the sleeve. Cool. Nice and tight. And that's it. Then all you gotta do is, before actually putting the diff in, throw these big washers on the back to keep everything nice and secure. So that's much easier than the OEM rubber ones. Onto the front mount now, and that is the one that is a solid billet alloy bush. I was just comparing it, and it's pretty much the same size as this. This is just a little bit smaller, but if you remember from the start of the video, we had the issue with this hole being elongated at the back from when this is being welded. So you can see from here, on the front edge, it actually slides straight in. So this is a tiny bit smaller than the bush, remember that? But it does slide straight in on the front, and it gets about halfway through and then hits. And from the back, it doesn't even go in at all. I don't know if you can really pick that up, but the elongation starts about halfway along, and from the top you can see that it is just there where it's been massaged in a little bit. So I'm planning to, I'll clean the inside up a little bit more like I did with the other ones, and then heat that area up, and then basically set the same puller system up as I did for that rear bush, but with the front mount, and to have it just push in, and hopefully that being a solid mount and this having some heat into it would just give it enough. I mean, it's only alloy as well, so hopefully it just bends back. But that's the plan. Hopefully, just as it's being forced through the front, it just massages the back to its correct shape. That's the theory anyway. Let's give it a go. Alrighty, I'm gonna get the mount out of the freezer. One in there. Get it all lined up pretty good. There we go. And because this is a little bit time sensitive, I'm going to gently use the rattle gun. I think that's in, guys. Well, it is in. I can see. I'm gonna have a look at the bottom piece. All right, so I could probably go a little bit further. Needs adjusting a little bit. So there. I think that's it. Damn, this bush tool is useful. Because I thought that was going to be way harder than it was. Boom. Magic. Cool. And yes, I know, I have installed it, what some might say the other way around, so you can't see the little unicorn from the front. It's on the diff side, but to be honest, I'd probably prefer it if it was just silver or black anyway. So without a pony visible, I'm okay with that. Awesome. Alrighty, well now I'll lay it back over and insert the subframe poly inserts, and then just a matter of getting it back on the car. Okay, I just realised that by setting the subframe up like that, having a bird's eye view from the camera, which I thought was going to give you a really good view of the mount going in, or the bush going in, it turns out that by using the rattle gun it just sort of blocked it, but hopefully you got the idea and you could see what was happening. Now, to do the actual subframe poly inserts, which are these here, they do come in 2 boxes, one over there, one here. These are actually really easy to install, especially when the subframe is out of the car. The boxes or the packets do come labeled front and rear. This is a rear, so you basically just run to the rear of the subframe, and as you can see, in 2 pieces. The top piece is easy to identify because it just has a shape cut out to mount to there, whereas the bottom piece has a big dome cut out, which is where the locating bolts go that actually mount the subframe to the chassis. And to install, I really like these because they are so easy to install. Even if you don't even have to take the subframe out of the car, but when they are out of the car, you literally just, whoops, not like that, lol. Pop in and look at that. Sits nice and tight. It fills that gap between the inner metal tube and the rubber bush, and that's actually sits in there not like pretty tight. That's pretty good. And that fills that gap, adds a little bit of extra stiffness, but it's not like having a full poly subframe mount. It's like a good medium between the two. So that's why I like them. And the bottom piece, you can see there's these little divots here which go in those divots. That's going to go, is it that way? Oh God, I'm so good at this. Like that. And pop her in, and that's it. I'll do the same to that side, and then the front, and then get it mounted back in the car. Well, run into a little bit of an issue. I'll try and show you. I've spent quite a while trying to get the front bolt into the front diff mount. The rear two are in. You can see the axles are bolted in. Nearly everything's all good to go. But it looks like we've gone a little bit too hardcore with the that triangle wing strength piece. You can see just there, because see, if I take the light away, oh, you can still see it, but as the front of the diff goes up, it hits that mount. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to grind some of that mount away, I think, which isn't ideal. I knew it was gonna be tight, but I didn't think it was gonna be too tight. But it's only alloy. I'll just sort of mark where it hits and take a scallop out of it, and hopefully that'll get it in. But that'll be it for this video. After this, I've got to do the shifter assembly. I've got an entire shifter, well, all of the pieces to replace all the worn out stuff that was in this car, and a lot of upgrade pieces as well. So it should make a hell of a difference to how it drives, especially with the rear end being nice and tight now with all these bushes done. So it should be pretty good. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Awesome.
What's not working?
Those, you know, those things weld onto the subframe? Yeah, they hit the diff.